Hello everyone, this is Jonathan Kiley with FlySkins.com. In this video segment, I'm going to show everyone that is watching how to use the Craw Bitz. They currently come in three different sizes, three different colors. Sizes, just small, medium, large. The reason why they're not going to be related to any hook size is probably because they have elastic qualities which will allow them to fit several sizes. Alright, so first this is a large brown. Just kind of gives you an idea how big it is. And then you have a medium, and this one's rust color, and then we have here a small olive. And I'm going to just tie with the medium one, kind of go in between those and show you how this works. Alright, so reason for this particular design is I wanted to make it obviously out of the same material as I do a lot of my other products, and as you can see there's a lot of flexibility and movement even with this medium one, small one as well. And you kind of tie this from underneath. Now I know there's a lot of other products out there, but this one's a little bit different, actually a lot different, based on the materials, flexibility, durability. You can still color on it, do whatever you want with it. Alright, so what I'm starting here is, or as far as the hook, is a 6X TMC 300, and it's a size, hang on one second, size 4. So I'm going to do the medium. I'm using Vivis 6/0 thread, rust color to accommodate the color. I'm going to use some Senyo's Fusion Dub. I'm also going to use some Hairline's micro silicone legs. It's the orange that transitions to the root beer color. I'm also going to use some extra select craft fur. This is the orangutan rust color. And then a brown, I think it's a 1-inch tarantula brush from EP. Alright. What I've done here is I've started my jam knot on the, basically right before the bend of the shank of the hook, and then I have these mono eyes from Hairline as well. This is the, I think this is the large size, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the bend just a little bit, get some thread wraps there. I'm going to take one of those silicone legs and I'm going to basically fold it in half. I'm going to leave it the full length too, and I'm going to pinch this down. What I want to do is just tie it just over that bend, and this is what it's going to do is it's going to enable it to kind of point up. I'm going to take my large mono eyes and I'm going to figure 8 those in basically right behind those eyes. See there? They're perpendicular to the hook. Looks like I should have wore a different color shirt. Alright. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to advance my thread just in front in between those eyes. I'm going to reverse tie this Craw Bitz in there, and if you look here you have a tie-in point. I'm going to tie that in. Because the next thing I want to do is I want to add some of this Fusion Dub, and all I'm just doing is creating kind of a base for the material. I'm just going to roll this on, and I'm going to wrap it around the shank of the hook in front of those eyes. I can pull this out of the way, it stretches, and then kind of go around the eyes, back over, and then I'm going to wrap a couple times over top just to kind of mat that down a little bit. Alright, so what I want to do now is I'm going to pull the Craw Bitz back a little bit. Okay, you can grab all of it, minus, I'm stretching out the tie-in point essentially, and I'm going to fold this over. You can see that now, and then I'm going to tie it back again. And all I'm doing is I am bunching up essentially the Craw Bitz, so they're nice and tight and secured. Okay, so next time I fold it over, if you can see, it's essentially going to lock it in place. Okay. All right. What I want to do again is I want to tie in some more of the Senyo's Fusion Dub. This is the tobacco color too. It's rust. It's got a little green hue in it as well. And I'm going to just wrap that around. And again, you can pull this stuff out of the way. And then I want to do a couple of wraps on it. Okay. So now what I want to do is I want to lock in the claws. That way that part will be done. So you do this basically segment by segment. Lock that in. And then what I can do, I can come all the way down, and I'll show you, I'll flip the hook here in a second. Come down a little bit further. And then I'm going to reverse it again, tie it back, and what I want to do is get it to where the legs, or the base of the legs, is right behind that other point. And that's going to make the legs up front where they need to be. Okay? Secure that in. It's really going to lock this in and make this a really durable fly. I'm going to add a little more Fusion Dub. And this time I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to brush some of this out. And what that's going to really do for me is it's going to add a little bugginess to the front of this fly. I'm going to just take a little strip of Velcro. I'm going to kind of just brush it out. The next step, what I like to do is add some craft fur. What that's going to do is going to create that point on the front of the crayfish, basically on the shell back portion. So I'm going to take my craft fur, snip off a little section. I'm going to pull the excess fibers out, and I want to mate those tips up at the end. I want it nice and thick. So I'm going to split the difference here on the hook, and I'm going to go about maybe a ½ inch of material in front of those eyes to create that point. I'm going to trim off my excess. Secure this down. Alright, flip this back over. Okay, so then what you want to do is you want to make sure that there's enough dubbing to cover this whole flat portion. What you can see there is I probably need to add a little bit more. Okay, so I'm going to come back in, get some more of my Fusion Dub, and this is going to kind of work out the way I really want it anyway. I can brush these fibers forward. It's going to kind of blend in with that craft fur and give it a little more body. Alright, so now what I want to do, I'm going to check it again, and the dubbing is right where I want it. I'm going to tie this in. Just hold it in place. You flip it over, you'll see that the dubbing is right there with where the legs are at. I'm going to brush this out again, and I kind of want to brush it forward to really get that material out, so when I pull it off the vise it'll be nice and blended. Okay. Alright. Now what you can do, I could have done this at the beginning, I could do it right now. I'm going to add a little weight to this. You can either add a dumbbell eye to the very end. What I like to do, because I want to make this a little more realistic looking, is I'm going to add some lead along the back side of this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to reverse the tail section real quick. Just kind of move my thread out of the way. And I'm going to come in with some 0.25 lead wire. I'm going to cover this whole section here. I'm going to leave a little space. Okay. Alright. Bring my thread back over. And I'm going to coat this with some thread wraps real quick. Alright. That's going to just help secure that in place when I do the next part. Alright. So one of the things you can do now is you can take this tail section and stretch it all the way to the back. Now the cool part about this material, as soon as you cinch it down, it's going to pop up. So since I'm tying this underneath, this tail is actually going to flip slightly upward on this part, but it'll actually be downward when the fly is actually sitting the way it needs to sit in the water. So it's going to look like the crayfish naturally sitting in the water. Okay. So I'm tying this down, and then if you really cinch it down, or if you tied a little material under there, it's really going to flip it up. Now the cool part is that this thing will still move, and it frees up all that space where your hook is going to be. Every time you strip it in, it's going to give it a little action. So I can turn this over now. Sometimes I like to add a little more craft fur over top of that section, just to cover that dubbing a little bit. You don't have to do this step. It's just a preferred method that I like to do it. So I'm going to tie a little more in right here. And then I'm going to trim this excess off. Alright, so this is where I add my EP Tarantula brush. This one's brown. Fold all the materials back and then secure it in place. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to palmer this, or wrap this around. I'm going to move the fibers out as I wrap it. You can do a dubbing loop at this point. You can do all chenille, whatever you want to do. This will work with several different materials for this section. I'm just using this because it's easy to show in the video. Alright. Move that stuff out of the way. One more. I've used about half of the brush. Wrap on both sides. And then I'm going to take my old pair of scissors and trim this off. Bend that wire down so I don't ruin my thread. Alright, so I want to fold all this out of the way. You can either whip finish right now, or you can pull the tail and everything back and do it that way. And then whip finish. Alright, so now what we have here is a big shaggy mess. So what I want to do is I want to start kind of part the material here and kind of fold most of this down out of the way. Okay, so what you're going to see is a lot of stuff hanging underneath, and then I'm going to come in with some UV fly finish the thin. Have my light on standby. Pull this down, and I'm going to start putting some of this on. It's going to be like the shell bag. care of that. Okay, and then I want to clean this up and trim some of these stragglers. I'm going to put another coat on it to give it a nice smooth look. Okay. Alright, so next thing I want to do is I want to trim this bottom. If you leave this too long, what's going to happen is it's actually going to turn the fly when you're stripping it in. So you want to trim this excess off. And I'm going to go on a tapered kind of cut with it. So I'm going to get kind of close here, and then I'm going to get basically further or longer as it gets closer to the claws. And then I'm going to kind of round this off. So the next step I have here is I have all that craft fur. What I want to do is create that point like on a real crayfish. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to gather the materials to the front here as much as I can. And I'm going to create that shell with some more loom. So clamp it down while I'm holding those materials. And I'm going to coat just on the edge here for now. And then you can trim any materials away that you think will make the taper not look correct. Add a little more loom. Now you don't really have to do this step. It's just me wanting to make it look more realistic. Another cool trick, you can come back in with the loom thick and then create even the little ridges on the tail. I'll show you that too. I'm going to just flatten this out a little bit. Alright, so I'm going to take some thick. I'm going to create those little ridges. Not necessary, it's just for fun. Do one. Do another one. And there you have it, a realistic crayfish. Also, if you want to, something that really can add even a little more variation to it is you can add color to the material on the claws and the legs and add segmentation. So what I'll do is I'll show you how to do that real quick. One thing that helps the color hold really well is to stretch it. So you can stretch the legs And there we have it.